Call the meeting to order. The chairman's comments. It's my third meeting today. Our third section is review and approve the minutes for the school building committee of October 12th. Everybody read the meeting. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the school building committee minutes which are attached. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item 4, timeline calendar. Oh, comments on the working group minutes? I asked for comments.
No, that's for the minutes.
That's for the working group.
Oh.
Does anyone have comments to it?
Yes, I have comments.
Okay,
Should have known.
all right. Comments on the working group minutes.
I'll take that as a compliment. The social, emotional classroom, speech, extended learning, all those special classrooms and stuff like that, have other consultants looked at that, or who's the expert on the compliance for all these classrooms as far as, regulatory items, whether the chairs are the right heights and.
You talking about kind of the special needs classrooms when you say?
Well,
Special ed, yeah.
yeah, most of the other classrooms that don't fall into, like grade 6 or stuff like that, the special needs, the speech, extended learning, are there, I would imagine that there are requirements there that are different from the regular classrooms, and I want to know who is the expert on that reviews.
Well, there's a couple experts, but it's been reviewed with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and that was actually a formal process at the end of schematic design. Every district does special education differently, so it's not so much the height of the chairs or the disposition of a specific room, but they look specifically that you haven't clustered special education, that you've distributed them equitably, and that they're well integrated into the school as a whole. You see older schools and they're down in some wing, so they want to make sure that the integration is the model. We had a conference call with Desiet at the schematic design phase, so they reviewed it in terms of that. Also, of course, it had to be reviewed. We had to have a letter as part of that submission from the Triton special education director, confirming that it met the Triton's goals. And then, we bring our own expertise in-house. So I would say there's actually 3 levels of review
Okay.
to that.
Can I add a fourth?
Sure.
So Larry, is that you asking the question?
Yes.
My former background and expertise is special education. I was the former SPED administrator for Triton twice, so that is my background, so I make sure we follow the regulations.
Okay.
And if I could just offer one comment, I quit teaching 37 years ago, and back in the 70s, our special ed classroom was up a catwalk over the top of the auditorium, hidden in the ceiling where nobody else went there.
My elementary school as well. Somebody just was commenting on Facebook how
Yep.
horrible that was.
It truly was. We've come a ways. A ways to go.
Okay. Another question I had on the class sizes, and I noticed that there's like a 50 to 100% variation in the class sizes from year to year as each grade progresses. Some of them have 4 class sections, others have 3, and then of course the next year the 4 class progresses up. And I also noticed that in each of the classrooms there's square, rectangular, oblong, round, and trapezoidal tables and stuff like that. Has anyone looked at the impact of those grades progressing up the chain and what effect that has on the class size and the requirements for tables and chairs and things like that.
Do you want me to answer that?
You mean in the terms of, expansion opportunity?
Well, we'll
Or
say
heights.
grades 5 and 6 maybe have taller chairs, okay? Grade 4 doesn't, okay? Grade 4 has 90 people in it now, grade 5 has 50, just as a for instance. I can dig out the figures. But anyway, next year, grade 4 goes to grade 5. Now that those classrooms that held 50 have to hold about 90. And their chair sizes are different, the tables are different.
Well, with two things. I think Christine will talk about the population.
Yeah, did you want to go first?
But just about the furniture, so, and if you're talking about what's in our room data sheets, I think we've done most of the layouts for 24 seats for students, just because that's the MSBA standard. We can certainly adjust that up or down. All the furniture is provisional right now. That's a separate procurement. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. We're really going to kick that off in earnest in the next month or so. So what's in the diagrams are placeholders. They are placeholders to show different types of educational environments, and that was a big part of the educational programming. That it's not like, when I went to school, we all sat in little rows with their own little table, and we just put our head down and did their work. It's so that there's definitely a desk, a seat for every student, but sometimes you want them to be in small groups, sometimes you want them to be in smaller groups, sometimes you want them all together, and we wanted to provide furniture that will serve those different needs. So there should actually be more physical seats for bottoms than students
Correct.
in the
And
classroom.
some teachers prefer tables and some teachers prefer desks. So again, that's an individual choice. We have already experienced from year to year, the cohorts, fourth grade, there may perhaps be 85 kids, and then they become fifth graders. We do a lot of swapping of furniture. That's just how it works. Everything's adjustable, but it's a very individual preference, and Erica and Emma can certainly chime in on that. But Erica, I know you prefer tables, and perhaps some other teachers prefer desks, so it's an individual choice.
And in my room right now, all my students have a desk, but I have rectangular tables, I have trapezoid tables, I have a round table to serve, like John said, all those different purposes, and it's worked fine for 4 years now, so.
But if I could pick up on what I hear Larry saying is, if you have a fourth grader who's at a chair on this level and he's going up to fifth grade, and now you need an appreciable number of more seats at fifth grade level to accommodate those fourth graders, but the chairs are much bigger at fifth grade. How are you going to accommodate? You're not going to move those undersized chairs from fourth grade up to
In
fifth
the
grade.
past, it's always worked out 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. There's enough there that we've always just kind of fluctuated back and forth. But there's usually in my classroom, say I have 22 kids, there are 30 seats in my classroom for kids to sit in, whether it's chairs or something else like that. So there's usually a larger number of seats than there are bodies as well. But between 4th, 5th, and 6th, we've just put an email out, I need 5 more chairs coming up next year, and just kind of coordinated that way. And I'm sure the younger grades, because all of your seats are relatively the same, other than kindergarten probably.
First grade, the chairs are much slower moving. To second grade, they got bigger, but I think maybe it comes down to ordering. Maybe we order the quantity needed, but also some excess for when the grades do fluctuate.
Right, yeah, and so, like I said, when we get into the real furniture procurement, we can go through and we can build in some fluff. We also have the extended learning areas, which can serve, they have in other projects served as some kind of a buffer. It's a balance, right? You don't want to buy 2 schools worth of furniture just because every grade might be bigger, because they're not all going to be bigger. And I understand the size difference of students, so we got to find a balance between buying too many extra pieces of furniture because we can't afford that, and not enough, so you get pinched if you do have a bubble.
Correct.
Larry?
Yeah, is there a storage area or something?
So storage of all furniture will be a consideration, but the building is the building and it's fully programmed, so there's very little storage. That's a challenge
Okay.
I know.
for everything.
The
In the school
only-
district I had worked with, they had rid of our storage trailers
Yeah.
outside and store
We'd like to
furniture
avoid
out
that,
there.
and we're gonna, there's a lot of work on furniture, not just the quantities, but the types, the styles, flexibility.
Keep in mind too, that the tables right here are adjustable. So I'm guessing that a lot of furniture probably can go up or down depending on the needs of the room.
Absolutely.
That's how they
good
make
point.
it, right?
Some-
Those are adjustable.
Tables.
Some
Some
do.
will.
Yeah.
Chairs,
But
not
the
so
chairs
much.
is
Right,
Right,
the
desks
chairs
are
become.
Why you put two
Well,
tennis balls in the bottom instead of the
But at
side?
the same time, right, generally speaking, right, the fluctuations are pretty small. You know, you don't see all of a sudden, like a bubble, doubling in one year. So-
Well, except for the current seventh grade cohort who just left was 93 in the current.
But we had
Sixth
enough
grade
furniture
for a
to
while,
accommodate.
yeah.
We did,
Yeah.
oh, I know.
Everyone's
I
I've
know.
been here
I'm just-
9
But
years,
that's
we've never,
the-
I've
You
never
see
had to
some-
buy
you
more
see some, but I
furniture.
mean,
But that's the
it's-
only time we had basically, what,
Right.
50
It's not the
to
rule, it's kind of
93.
the exception.
That was
to
an
the rule.
exception.
Yeah.
The Red Sox won
There is-
that year. It's
See?
true.
This year's sixth grade
2004,
class,
2005,
there's
Red Sox were
89.
winning. Do the math.
Last
What?
year's was 64.
Am I wrong?
So, and I don't know how accurate these are. This is from the Rowley Annual Report. So these numbers like are October of that year. So God knows, when, everybody of course takes the classroom sizes at different times, so, there's.
Did you have to report numbers for October 1st?
To the state, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And that's all generated through our database.
Okay, getting on to the HVAC and related stuff. I take it that the one boiler will be replaced by two boilers, which will be cycled back and
Right.
forth. And I noticed that every classroom will have a RTU, is that correct?
It will have a,
Rooftop unit?
every classroom will have, now I'm losing my
VAV?
terminology.
VAV.
Acronym soup. But a VAV, a terminal box, that will adjust the flow of the air. But the RTUs will be shared, depending on what part of the building, by 4 or 8 classrooms. When it's 2 stories, it's stacked.
And the adjustability is not, one teacher can't put their thermostat at 62 and another teacher at 78. There's gonna be a small range, correct?
Yes, right, because they're
So,
sharing.
so
RTUs.
we have, is that separate ductwork from the HVAC units? The RTU units will have their own separate ductwork?
Right, each, there's 10, I think, RTUs. 9. They serve their own areas, so one serves kitchen and all-purpose room, they're not all for classrooms. But classrooms or rooms that share an RTU, they get the same air from that RTU. They can vary the volume, and that gives them some range of temperature
Right, but
control.
we'll say, the classrooms on the first floor, maybe are sharing an RTU with the classroom up on the second floor?
Right,
Okay, and,
like in the south wing.
right, so that, there will be additional ductwork going somewhere through the second floor down to the first floor.
Right, and that's in our drawings right now, that's been in this
Okay.
estimate.
And the administrative and nursing will have full air conditioning?
Yes.
Yes.
Why is that?
I work 12 months a year. I think that was part of the conversation. I am a 12-month employee, so I am in this building when it potentially can be 96 degrees in July or August, and the nurse's office, because if we do have warmer weather in the late spring or early fall, she has students that have seizure disorders or certain medical conditions that would require a certain cooler temperature to help with their medical issues.
Right, if you remember, our base system may be as warm as 75 degrees in the classrooms. It'll be dehumidified,
Right.
but it'll be 75 degrees, which will be generally comfortable, but summertime or students who are sick, it was felt that was they needed a higher need of control. So they're gonna get more of the control that you would have in an office building, where they'll be able to get,
And that's
69
just the
degrees.
administrative nursing area, which is
Right.
part of this side and maybe 1/4 or less of the north wing.
Correct.
Right.
That's common in most schools.
I'd say almost every school.
In mine it
Yeah.
Admin.
Or was it when you were in there?
And health.
Every, I mean, I only been in this school 10 years, it hasn't provided AC the admin. Most of them fully.
Are there refrigerators in all the classrooms?
No,
No, not
Oh, okay.
kindergarten.
just kindergarten, yes. Because of their snack program.
Could you address the issue of the supplemental heating? You have hot water radiant heat panels at the windows. And then you also show radiant heat from the ceiling. Is that correct? How does the?
But not in the same space. I think we might have different approaches to different rooms.
No, how does the radiant heat at the window level work? I understand the ceilings.
It's also at the ceilings. When you say the windows, it's also in the ceilings.
You get both, because essentially what
It's
you.
not on the sill,
No,
it's above the window.
depending on, the particular situation, it may vary in certain circumstances, but the big picture idea, okay, with the radiant or like, thin tube, you hear that type of description, is that, when you have an exterior wall with windows in it, right, particularly with the windows, it's a thermal comfort issue, even though you're heating and cooling the room, right, in its entirety overhead. And here with displacement air, we're actually tackling it, okay, down low. But even at that window, from a thermal comfort perspective, you're taking some of the chill off, okay, of anything there with a window, just like if you're in your house. You can have your house and your thermostat says it's 72 degrees, but if you're the kid that happens to be sitting right next to the window, right, that's why you have the radiant heat.
No, I'm just wondering because, we're spending a lot of money on the new windows that are supposed to be thermally
Right, but-
great.
Yeah, but they're
even
still
the-
windows.
Even the best,
Insulation.
even the best window is a terrible wall.
Yeah.
When you think about it as
Yes.
insulation. The best window is like an R2. You wouldn't build an R2 wall, a house is R19.
After the wall's done, you'll go up and you'll feel the wall, right? And the wall will be, it'll
Right.
be okay, but when you still put the wall on that glass is still gonna be cold.
The other thing about the supplemental radiant heating is it allows you to shut down the RTUs when the building's unoccupied, so it becomes an operational energy savings over the night and when, vacations when the building's unoccupied.
So those RTUs are individually controlled, we'll say by the
Absolutely.
classroom.
Well, the collection of classrooms.
And the energy management
The
system.
energy management system will integrate that. So the teachers will request different amounts. The weather station will be integrated and the schedule will be integrated, and all this will run through the energy management system and decide what level to operate the RTUs.
Okay. All right, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Okay, timeline?
Timeline, milestone on Monday, the 60% submission to the MSBA of construction documents was made. And the working, I shouldn't say working group, the trade contractor group met earlier today to start the process of qualifying trade contractors for the next phase, which is the early bid package for the windows, which will be out in the middle of this month. Calendar has also been updated to include current meeting schedule.
Just to add that, the school district did receive copies from Durham Whittier of the construction documents as it was submitted to MSBA.
And we have a copy of the binder that goes with the documents tonight.
Did we get a copy in the office, Debbie?
No, I have your copy, Joe.
Okay.
Big picture, right on schedule.
Yay.
You mentioned some of the other upcoming meetings, a public meeting? or-
Yep, then in terms of the updates, yes.
No.
We had last week a meeting with Verizon to talk about refeeding the property with the data lines. And I guess it's all data these days. There's no really such thing, I guess, as a telephone line. with data lines. And the working group also met to talk about the windows and the change from a casement-style window to an awning style window because of the longevity of the operator and the weight of the window. There was also discussions regarding FF&E, tables, chairs, and technology budgets.
Which we'll review in more detail, but it's just important to understand that the FF&E, furniture, and technology are separate line items in the budget, separate from the construction contract.
And they're allowed a
Cap.
$1,200 per student cap
Cap.
From the MSBA. The dollars can be supplemented by the community, but the MSBA allows an expenditure in each line item of $1,200.
Which is the budget we're working towards right now.
So that 1,200 is in the budget. It is a
Yes,
reasonable
yes,
figure.
it is in,
And that was
$996,000
Right.
between the two.
It's a little
Two
harder,
items.
it's a little harder on smaller, schools, because you don't get quite the scale out of it that you would if it was a larger scale, but, you know, that's, like I said, that's the target budget that we're working to right now.
Earlier today, the working group also met to talk to the cafeteria staff, food service staff, about the upcoming April shutdown of the existing kitchen and relocating it to the gymnasium, and which would facilitate the early start of the AP room as well as the kitchen, and some exterior site work relating to new electrical service for the building.
And I believe we have a really solid plan moving forward to make that very user-friendly.
Yeah, I think everybody will
We're-
be able to live with what has been
Absolutely.
discussed.
We're already going to be taking action on some of the items that came out of the working group meeting today, just logistical things, getting it ready. And the idea is to have it a week before to do a trial run.
Correct.
And we'll want to make sure everything is in order in case they have to, double back to the kitchen while it's still there.
Sure.
But, there are a lot of, I have a lot of takeaways, and Michelle and I are going to work together on other things. So it's very, very productive, and we know we need to do what we know now because we know we need to do it.
Sure. There will be the need for some temporary services to be brought into the gym to support the food service equipment that will be moving out of the existing cafeteria and into that space so that meals can be served and kept at the proper temperatures.
But all meals will be prepared at Triton,
Correct.
the Triton kitchen.
And there is also a delivery mechanism that was discussed and is being put into place to get the meals from Triton over to the school.
It's not my avalanche.
The other item we talked about, we walked through the school to look at existing artwork, and where it's located and how it will be repurposed in the building as part of the new construction. And a few minutes ago, the first meeting of the trade contractor group was held to discuss the procedures and goals necessary to qualify the 100-plus respondents to the request for qualifications for the project. There was over 100 firms representing all the trades that were necessary with coverage that everybody feels comfortable will provide good numbers or a good source of future numbers as the project gets bid.
So just in kind of high level, what this really is, so we'll go through for all of the trades. We got good coverage, like Larry said, and we're pre-qualify them, and the intent there is we want to maintain good coverage there, but we just want to weed out any potential bad actors, right? So that's what this whole process is for. In a perfect world, everybody in there is qualified, and we still have the 95, people that ultimately submitted, or 105, however many it was. so that we have the largest bid pool possible. And then, after this whole next round is done, usually maybe we see one or two come out of it, that we would weed out. But generally speaking, we hope to have as many subcontractors or trade contractors in as possible. It was good.
Could you explain how that fits in with the general contractor?
Sure. So if you look at trade contractors, they're prescribed, okay, by statute. And so in the Chapter 149, they used to be called filed subbidders. Here they're called trade contractors. So a lot of the larger trades, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, who else?
Tile, masonry, mixed metals.
Structural steel, for example, is not, site is not, but they represent roughly, 50% of the cost in that ballpark, okay, of a project. And those, they have, we're gonna go out and we're going to bid to them, and then they're going to go and respond, and we'll be able to go through all of their bids. And if they're qualified, which they should be qualified because we've already pre-qualified them, so unless something dramatic has changed, their bid's gonna come through and we're gonna take the low bid unless, right, there's some type of scope issue or something like that.
Who's
that
the
we
we?
find. Pardon me?
Who is the we that's selecting the trade contractors? Is that
The pre-qualification.
Dora Whittier?
No, the
No.
committee that we just had, the group, which is represented by you as the owner, us as the designer, Pink as the OPM, and then W.T. Rich as the construction manager, are all participatory in that project and defining what that pool is. So that's gonna give us essentially everybody that can bid on the project. Then they will bid, and then we're gonna go and evaluate, what they actually priced the job up at. And most of the time, we'll end up taking the low bidder unless it's a very unusual circumstance. And so when I say we, we as the project will be selecting, those people.
We did vote to set that committee up.
Yeah,
But
technically, those are
ultimately, the Board of
bids.
Selectmen will be voting to accept the bids at the
Right.
end.
Yeah.
Technically, those are bid to the awarding authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, for file subbids or trade contractors they're called, so it's a sealed bid process, publicly opened. I don't know, sometimes it's at the OPM's office, but a lot of times it'll be at a venue you guys will designate. They need to be delivered by a certain date and time. They're opened up immediately thereafter. People stay around, they see who the bids are. It's very unusual to not award to the low bidder since we've already gone through the pre-qualification process. Generally, W.T. Rich is a contractor, we will hold those contracts. We ultimately will be the one to issue them an award, issue them a contract, and we'll be responsible for managing them and then their performance. The mechanism how we get there, usually we want to get to a guaranteed maximum price that we submit for the project as a whole, so you know where the project's coming in, so that you then authorize us to issue those awards for those trade contractors.
Right, but you don't have, Rich doesn't have the ultimate authority in deciding who you wanna,
No,
who
good.
Rich
So
wants to
everyone,
work
great question. So every subcontractor we hold, we will write, it's even more relevant for the non-trade, where we're going out and we're bidding and it's more negotiating and de-scoping and all that. But we're writing a letter of recommendation, generally to the OPM, but ultimately to the town, to say, we recommend that electrical be awarded to Levangie Electric. They were the low trade contract bidder. And then you guys will put in writing that we are authorized, that we will basically recommend it for any category. We'll show all the bids that we received. We'll give the backup for all the bids we received, and then you guys will give that authorization for us to award.
Okay, so if there's, we'll say, someone that you have worked with before on a job that's, on paper eminently qualified, but has other problems, that you can have a say-so in it, but we'll say the town might decide to go with contractor X or so.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish between the trade contractor process, which is very structured, this public bidding, and we're gonna go through that pre-qualification now. If we have a big issue with someone, we're gonna voice that now, and we'll see if we have other references that have issues. If there was pushback from the committee and they, somehow we have to decide whether they're pre-qualified or not. Once we get to
Right.
that list, we're not gonna make any more issues.
But to
on our
me, it's
side.
more important that Rich is satisfied
Yeah.
with all of the trade contractors
Yep.
and subcontractors.
And the subcontractors,
Because you have to work with them personally, okay? We don't. We just say, yes, in the last 10 projects, they were really good, but, you can say, yeah, but on the last project, the guy, shot 3 people for non-compliance or whatever. And you may not want to go that route, so.
But even.
You're watching too
so-
much
so-
true crime TV.
Yeah, it's a good,
Wow.
No,
it's,
I'm watching a press conference.
it's a good question, but there is a process, and so, and these guys do have a voice, right?
Right.
And we listen to that, but there still is this process that we have to go through.
Yes.
And we certainly take into account, consider what these guys have to say. We've worked with a lot of these, if not most of these people, as have Pink. And so that's really why, the statute set it up that everybody has this voice as part of the pre-qualification committee. And so ultimately, while the decision, right, goes through your house, right, there is, this kind of form that we go through to go and weight everybody, check references, and do all of those things.
Right.
And once we've got by that and everybody's had their opportunity to speak, and now it's bid day, right, at that point in time, as John was saying, right, if they're the low bidder, it would be a very unusual circumstance that we wouldn't select them, whoever they are. Because once they get by that first pre-qualification hurdle, they're in.
Right.
And we're part of that process.
Yeah. And then ultimately, even at that point, right, as John was saying, it still is you guys are still going and saying, okay, using Levangie Electric. Levangie Electric is the low bidder. You guys are gonna go and say, he's gonna issue a RTA, or a request for authorization, to go and say, these guys, based on what we've seen, they've been pre-qualified, they have a bona fide, okay, bid, okay, here's the value, and, this is what we're recommending, and then we would go and say, okay, they take that number, and then they plug that into their GMP, along with everything else, and at the end of the day, they come back with a contract, and they say, here's the value of my contract, based on all of this stuff that you've already gone and looked at, and these pre-qualified bidders have gone through the process. And then we sign, then you sign on the dotted line, right, and we're off to the races, and we're actually gonna have, okay, live, right, tonight, one of those that we're gonna talk about as part of the early release package. So we'll get to see the process in action.
Okay.
Okay? I guess that gets us to construction budget, is the next thing?
Yes, it does.
Unless anybody else
No,
has any
it does.
questions. So as part of the 60% set, okay, that we just submitted to MSBA, if you remember, back at schematic design, we went through a very similar reconciliation exercise to go and have the schematic design estimated. So now, okay, we're actually 60% of the way through construction documents. Because of the, limited scope repair nature of this, we didn't have a design development submission, so there was no estimate at DD, so this is the first estimate since schematic design. And just like schematic design, we have 2 independent estimators looking at that. So they get all of the documents, they go off to their separate corners, do their estimating thing, and then we come back and, we spent, basically a day going through the estimates to go and see, how did we line up. And so, you don't line up necessarily 100% on everything, but you do go through everything and there's a discussion. And sometimes you'll go through and you'll say, okay, I've got $10 for this one and you guys have $8 for this one, so what's the deal? And so, you have that discussion, and sometimes it turns out that somebody might have a different unit price, or they might have a different quantity, and so those get reconciled, and then you end up getting pretty darn close. You might not, and at that point, sometimes, the respective estimator, they might stick to their guns because that's what they really believe, But the objective is overall to get as close as you possibly can, and at the end of the day, we look at both those estimates, look at the bottom line and say, how close are we? And then, if those are, within a few percent, we think we're doing pretty darn good. And then at that point, then we gotta go back and look at the budget and say, how are we doing now as compared to the budget? So I'm happy to report that on both of those issues, right, we're pretty much right on the money, and actually better than probably one of the best reconciliations that I've ever been through, to where right now on a $30 million construction project, we're off about $72,000 between the two estimators, which is about 0.23%. So that's really close. And so I think that really is good in terms of people were looking at the same thing to a large extent on the documents. And then there was actually a really good process in terms of everybody going through and working together to come to, a mutual agreement on most of the outcomes of these things. So with that has also been included as part of the 60% set that we delivered to MSBA. It's something that is not right now available as a public document. And the reason for that is that, it's part of the estimating process, it's part of the pricing process. We don't want that information to be able to be publicly reviewed so that contractors can start to look out there and get an early advanced look at, what things are, as well as, trying to go and understand, where's the bar, where's the budget for this thing, because we want, really honest competitive bids. So we're happy to share that, with people, if they would like to have that. And Larry, just in anticipation of your diligence, which I sincerely respect, okay, we actually got you a copy of this because we know for your reading pleasure, right, that you're gonna want that. So there's a copy of both our estimator as well as W.T. Rich, right? And, if after you've poured through that in incredible detail, we'd be happy to have the discussion with you offline so that we can, go and answer any questions. But all in all, very good process, good result. We're gonna check in again, okay, on 90%, which will be our final reconciliation, okay, for the estimate before we go out to bid. And ultimately have a GMP that Rich is gonna provide us. And so far, right, what we're doing is we're comparing this back to the budget, as I said, and we're good. We're gonna go back, we're gonna look at it again at the 90% set, and if we're good again, that's great. I mean, that's exactly what we wanna have happen. We still have, okay, the same level of contingencies that we had out there, but for design and pricing contingency, which, as I think we talked about early on, starts out high, and as the design evolves, the contingency shrinks, okay, to be able to compensate for more detail being put in the drawings. So right now, we're at about 3%. We all agree that's probably a pretty reasonable number to have, considering that we only have about, when are we issuing, 90?
December 6th.
December 6th. So, we've only got so far to go before we can get that much into it. So we're hopeful that 3% will be good. If it's not, and we find out after we've reconciled at 90%, we're gonna have to pump the brakes and go and figure out where do we need to go and make some cuts. You've all heard me say there's no value in value engineering, but it's something that you have to do if we're gonna be on the budget, and that's the process that we'll have to go and embark on if we get to that point. But right now, based on where we are, business as usual, and we're shooting for, mid-December, we'll have another check-in on what the budget is. Any questions? All right, terrific. FF&E budget. JR, you want that one?
I'll try to be as quick as you. So as Larry mentioned, we did meet last week to go over with the working group, kind of a semi-broken down budget both for technology that our technology consultant had produced and our furniture consultant who's in-house, Margaret, did a similar breakdown for furniture. Both of those in our 3011, which is the MSBA form for the project, are set at $498,000. That's basically $1,200 per student for the design enrollment, which is 415 students. May not be your actual enrollment, but that's what the MSBA considers it. And technology has all the major components: network, servers, wireless access points, some monies for a few carts of Chromebooks and certainly also teacher laptops or Chromebooks and desktops. All these are budget line items. We're about to start the process where we actually go through first with the school and districts technology group, and then we'll report back to the working group and kind of finalize that on terms of specification and actual quantities. But including a $15,000 contingency, we're $1,500 over the budget, but as I say, there's $15,000 of contingency, so that should work out well.
Are the smart boards, I don't know if I missed it, are the smart board projectors that included in that budget or is that separate?
They are in that budget right now.
Are they using the ones we have now, or are we getting new ones?
We're getting new interactive projectors.
Ooh, cool.
So, and we'll go over all those details, and like I say, there's a FF&E furniture and equipment and technology are parallel processes. In both cases, we are recommending that we pursue a state contract procurement method. Vendors for furniture and equipment and loose technology all have given competitive prices to the state that are available for any public project. What we like to do is, first of all, work with the owner to find out what you want, whether it's technology or furniture, exact models, exact quantities. Then we go out and we actually request proposals from vendors who are on the state contract, because they can actually beat their state contract price, and they do when asked to. So we'll ask a couple vendors, 2 or 3 per category. We'd like to, in both cases, consolidate as much as possible. It makes the furniture installation go a lot smoother. You have a single vendor who's responsible, maybe multiple manufacturers, but you like to have one company in charge, if possible, of installing that, especially with 5 phases. It's a lot of management.
Yes, it is. Having taken on that task with a
Recent
project that
project?
was cherry-picked.
Yes.
They had 4 different people providing office furniture.
Right, so in both cases, furniture and technology, this was really a budget exercise, just to let you and the MSBA know that we're on budget with regards to that. And then in the next 2 months or so, we're gonna do probably, in both cases, 3 or 4 meetings where we kind of look in more detail at the specifics and then kind of follow up with pricing and then kind of finalize our quantities. For furniture also, because that's so important to how you use the school and experience the school, we're going to get select vendors to bring us samples to the school. So we'll have a physical evaluation of samples so that the larger school population, students as well, can weigh in. They don't get to decide, but everyone can give us
opinions.
opinion.
So was the technology budget an additional $498?
Yeah.
Yes,
They're
yeah,
both
it's
498.
1,200 per
each.
student for each side.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
$996.
Yeah.
Combined both.
Although, one thing that was allowed in the past and is no longer allowed, you could, if you were light on one side,
Put it on
you
the
could
other.
shift, but they've now drawn a hard line between the 2 budgets. So you don't have that opportunity anymore.
Will the furniture types be presented in the working group first and then brought to the larger committee? I'm just thinking maybe, Myra, you and I could maybe sit in on one of those working groups just to kind of see what's being looked at, just to. I don't know if you think the same thing, Erica, just to see.
Yeah, I mean, just being that we work with kids and
2 different grades.
in the
just to kinda
classroom with
see
all the furniture daily.
And then kind of bring that back to
technology, yeah, I'm happy
the
to-
other
Yeah.
teachers, just to kind of get a feel for what people are thinking of, whether tables or desks, just, I don't know, just a thought.
Is the number of students already locked, or is that?
Yeah, that was
That's
Okay.
SBA
That's the
presentation.
official number, but to
Okay.
Larry's point earlier, that's not usually what, we would design for more capacity.
Right, I'm just
Because-
wondering if the budget could go up, because I know you got a new student today. You know, there's
Did they
another
bring
one
$1,200?
coming in a
Gotten,
couple
I
weeks, I
think,
mean, how many?
4?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that-
just
Keep
like.
in mind, when we get 4 new, we lose 3. It's always
Okay,
a.
I'm just,
yeah.
Your cost can go up, but your budget can't.
okay.
Yeah. You just need to
I
find
was
source,
hopeful.
need to find source.
I was hopeful that it wouldn't lock until, next fall or something, I don't know.
So one thing we're tracking is there is the possibility, say with projectors or some items, to shift them into the construction budget, and that would maintain space in either the technology or the furniture budget. So we're monitoring that, and right now, we're doing fine.
And because the teachers just got new Chromebooks from the district, I don't know if that.
They're on a lease, though.
That's the, okay.
Yeah.
And, was it talked about the number of carts and like for student
So right now, to meet
ratio?
budget, the number of carts is small. I think it's
Yes,
4
It's
carts.
within the budget, we don't have a choice.
If we can pick up more space, you know, because the servers cost less, or the wireless access
Right,
points,
right.
or we shift the projectors, you know,
Yep.
then we can get more. Right now, there's a heavy number assigned to teachers, though. I think that he's carrying a desktop and a Chromebook. So, you know, we can evaluate that.
For
Also,
each teacher.
For
For
each
each
teacher,
teacher, we
yes.
can evaluate if that's necessary for every teacher, or maybe some teachers. You know.
So a desktop in the class, so.
A
what-
teacher, like you have a desktop now.
Yeah, but what's gonna, so the district, like they're leasing for all the schools. So when we get, say we were getting the desktop, how does that work with our building project getting, you know what I mean? Like how does that?
We
the
already have
districts
budget
don't
from
pay
Triton, in
for
other
it?
words.
Right, the
We already
Tritons,
have leased materials here.
right.
Yeah.
So does Triton continue to pick up the numbers, so the number's actually greater than what our budget allows for?
It's above our
Because they
pay
should be
grade.
paying for ours if they're paying for the others, right?
Steve Bryan.
Joe? Do we know?
Don't have an answer.
Oh.
So the project will pay for the
That's
new
Michelle.
equipment, it's a purchase. We
Right.
lease everything, that's just our motto. So we will turn in that particular equipment that's leased early. We'll get a discount on that, but then when it's time to replace your equipment, we're gonna lease it again. Because your equipment's not gonna last more than.
We're not getting
3 to 4
additional
Yeah, I get it.
stuff more than the other schools.
Right, yeah.
You guys were hoping to get some money.
Well, yeah.
Well, we usually
I was
don't
hoping to
get
keep
additional stuff
what,
over here. We
yeah.
usually pay
Yeah.
for our own stuff.
Because when, it's kind of like a capital plan, we know what our leasing costs are, and if we have a little capacity within that, then yeah, we can replace a server, or we can replace whatnot, in that capital plan, but it's kind of like.
So it's a boon for the district that we're
consistent
actually
leasing.
picking it up in the construction budget,
Yeah,
in the budget.
they'll give us
Yeah,
like
Okay.
a little leeway for
for
a
the
couple years.
You're helping others, Jen.
I really want to help others
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
I want-
We're helping others, but at the end of the day, we're gonna have the most rockin' school ever in the district, so.
Okay. Salvage and
Salvage
gallery.
out.
You wanna hit that one too, Jen?
Yeah, so we did a walkthrough with the working group, just we've heard feedback, you know, we understand community, former parents, students have expressed concern about existing artwork, and we reviewed what could be salvaged and or preserved, like, actually, what we just noticed, the mural back here, which had escaped our notice before. That's a go, we can keep that wall doesn't move, it's in great condition. Other things like we've shown you the renderings of the all-purpose room, so, you know, the intent is to paint over those murals. There's a painting in the back that's loosely mounted, that can be demounted and offered up. There'll be a general surplus process with equipment as well as a few pieces of art. I don't think we're gonna, on art, that piece in the back can be removed. We don't have a place for it, it really
The
is
globe.
of a time. The globe, we don't
Whatever you
have a
call it.
home.
The thing, the lower
Dust
south, that big
collector?
giant,
It's
what?
dust.
So the dust
Oh,
collector.
that-
Yes, it can't go outside, and we've been struggling
Mm.
for 6 months, basically, because we did that first walkthrough over the
Right,
summer,
right.
like, where the heck are we gonna
Mm.
put that?
Yeah, that's what, kids, remember, a kid was like, I think hiding behind it once, remember? It was like, it was like a
Forgot
hiding
about that.
spot, yeah.
Oh, so it's a
Yeah, we
safety
were like,
issue.
oh, it's
Hmm.
you, yeah.
Could it be donated to the library or someplace else in town?
Library doesn't have the space.
On the
Town
roof?
hall?
Can it go,
Town
can it go
Upstairs in town.
outside?
I have a recommendation, but I have to, I'll hold that.
Melt it down for scrap?
We heard it today.
I didn't think of that one, yes.
See how long it will last.
Melt
That's
it-
a good
melt it for
idea.
scrap?
Science experiment.
Ooh.
Things we can save,
That's
there's a
good for
nice collage in the
Yeah.
south wing that's mounted on a little mosaic. and
Next
that's
to the
on its own
art room,
board.
that we can save, Margaret had a suggestion of putting that
Right.
in the early childhood wing, I think going into one of the, a bathroom or something.
Oh,
It's
the
really
We Are,
cute.
the We Are page, or the We Are thing?
It's a mosaic tile thing outside the art room.
I think it's got kids on
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because that is screwed into the wall, so we can actually preserve that and relocate that.
Do we
right.
want to?
Yes, it's very
Yeah,
cute.
that's some good
Okay.
It's
condition.
we
really
have
cute.
to.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we
It's
evaluate
my
everything,
favorite.
could it be
Okay,
replaced,
okay.
does it
I have
need
to
to
go look at
move, and
Yes,
it does, is
'cause
it
it doesn't
is
go
it
with our new
aesthetically
Right.
compatible?
Okay.
You know, we want to strike a balance between having continuity, you know, this is a school that's been here for generations of students now, but it is going to essentially be a new school. So we don't want the new generations to be burdened with all of the stuff from our collective attic.
What about the rounded wall in the entryway? Is that?
Yeah, the
not
painted
able to-
wall murals are basically all being replaced.
We could take pictures of them and have them enlarged and hang them in the building to memorialize those people. That was a suggestion. Take picture of them, yeah.
I heard that in the Girl Scouts. People should just take pictures if
Yeah.
they wanted, take pictures and hang them in their home. I mean,
Okay, John?
Oh, that's all I
people
had.
live in the town.
All done on FF&E? I mean, salvage art and gallery.
Oh, gallery, I should just mention we reviewed the gallery. Margaret did some more drawings. I think they're well-received. I don't have it on my screen, but basically to spruce up in kind the amount of display area you currently have. So we'll have a cleaner but similar hanging mechanism for wall art and new LED lighting. It can be used for the public art or student art. We wanted to make sure that's fully available. And so the space, as with all the other spaces, will be refurbished to be able to serve its existing and future functions well.
I didn't either. Today was the first time I saw it.
Okay,
Early bid package.
As part of the ongoing design, we carved out early bid packages so that equipment could be procured in advance of the construction start, so there was not a big delay and that construction would be on pace through the duration of the project. As part of the first group of early bid packages with ERP1, we had the rooftop units, the boilers, and the main electrical switchgear. And what we are asking for tonight is permission to allow Rich to make those purchases. They have started to solicit pricing, and they have received some pricing, and it's being descoped to ensure that everything that is necessary is in that early package. Ultimately, that package will be assigned to the trade contractor who wins the award for the work associated with that equipment. The value of the work for those three main items is approximately $862,000. Against the original estimate of $869,000. And it's not the final numbers. The goal is to drive them lower, and also that the dollars that are spent on the purchase of this early equipment will be wrapped into the total project cost and the GMP. These are dollars that are not outside the full construction cost. They are just they are part of the ultimate construction cost. It's just the need to have them because of the long lead time associated with their procurement. Everybody feels as though now is the time to get those orders going. Similar to what was done at the last meeting with the transformer for the new electrical service.
What were those three items again?
The three items are rooftop units, and they have an estimated cost of $764,000, $64,913.60. I'll give you the full numbers. The boilers, which there are two of them, for $63,390.90, and the main electrical switchgear, which is $34,228.30.
Larry, can I ask a
Yes,
question? It seemed like you had exact figures on the boilers. Is there a manufacturer spec, or do we know what type?
I'll let John talk to what
we have
what's specified.
So the reason there's exact numbers is there, we have quotes from all these vendors, and we're still waiting on one or two more quotes to come in, and we still have to sit with them and do like a de-scoping process to make sure that what they've specified meets the the contract
So
requirements.
we really
exactly.
don't know that yet,
We-
based on
we-
the amount of different submissions.
Right, we don't, we're, but we, on our side, the timing we have, like, we need to move on this pretty quick, so we need to finish up our de-scoping and get some words out by the end of next week, so that's why we know, if you guys authorize us here, then it still has to go to the selectmen on Monday, is our understanding, because you're actually authorizing it, but what we've set it up is, we've shown you the breakdown, and we said this is a not to exceed amount, so whatever we come up with, we are not gonna exceed that total amount there. We actually carried a little bit of contingency, the same that we carried in our estimate, a little over 5%. In case, it's pretty unlikely, but in case the low bidder that we're showing right now at this point comes in and they messed up their bid, they forgot something, you know, and all of a sudden, oh, I gotta add 10 grand to my bid for that, or 20, we don't think that's gonna happen, be really unusual, especially, you know, if it happened in one, the other two, we think we get positive. Usually, from the numbers we have, usually you can improve on those 3 to 5% from what we have. So we think we have them covered, but we talked about with the team, we just need to be in a position, like, we can go forward and we can issue purchase orders to these vendors next week. So really, we would still make a recommendation to Pink, and you're kind of in some ways authorizing Pink to review that, and whether it's an Aon air handling unit, or Green Hack, or, you know, air coat boilers, whatever we're recommending, it's gonna be one of the specified, or, you know, the engineers will review this too for,
Yeah, we did
during
have
mid-year.
a conference call to review the rooftop units with our engineer.
Yeah.
In terms of against our spec and who had responded, and for instance, with Green Hack, I think different salespeople were giving different responses
Yeah.
to you guys as they'd given to our engineer, and we talked that through, and I think you guys went back to Green Hack and talking to the other sales rep.
So, I mean, in another week, we will have, you know, what the vendor is, we will have the exact price for these 3 items. And it will be, what we're saying is, we're only authorized, so if we went over that, we'd have to come back to you and have you guys, you know, review it and explain why we went over. We don't expect to go over, we put, like I said, a little contingency in there. We actually expect to pick up money against what we bought. I will say for the rooftop units too, it's a big number, it includes all the rooftop curbs system, which also has vibration isolation in it, in the curb system. As Larry mentioned, it's what we carried in this estimate that Brad just referenced. So the estimate, which is on budget, has a little bit more money than even we're asking for here, because when we came up with it, we had a few $1,000s ahead of where we were in the estimate. We sort of already picked up some and still have that comfort factor in there.
So has Pink reviewed this yet, or they're gonna be getting that shortly, or?
They've reviewed
We
what we
reviewed-
submitted
yeah.
for what we're requesting right now, and what's coming next week is our actual final recommendations. Which vendor, which exact price. So this is sort of authorizing us within these parameters to proceed. So we
This
can award next
particular
week.
one is a little unusual, I think, for your
Right.
recommendations, just because you are under pressure to get these purchase orders out before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean-
And to get in the queue. This is all about, these are long lead items. After a purchase order is issued, shop drawings have to be generated, they have to be reviewed by our engineers, then the order is actually
Well,
placed.
there's often a time where they say, revise and resubmit, there's a
Right.
few things you need to tweak, the vendor needs to resubmit it, it finally gets approved, and then there could be 15 to 18 weeks lead time on some of these items, especially the switchgear. And we all did this because we know we have a very intensive summer, and if you kind of add up all that time, doing it now, you know, sets us up for success, and maybe if something goes a little longer than we expected, we're still okay, right? We're not so tight, so in construction, you'll see this, you want a project to run smoothly, getting ahead of the curve on the time is one of the biggest things you can do, and not be like, oh my God, the vendor's saying it's 20 weeks for this unit, and we need it here by, you know, July 15th if we're gonna open it, like, so we've already kind of built in what we think is the right contingency. That's why we're pushing for this award for next week, so we still have some conservative times to fulfill the requirements.
I have a question. What effect does this have on the warranty of these items? Because I know in a previous job that I was on, you know, when the boiler shows up and it's dropped off and it's sitting there, the warranty is actually starting before it's even installed. So is there some surety that the warranty will be extended after it's installed?
Yeah, we need, so all vendors basically will start their warranty on the ship date. All, for big equipment like this, not all equipment, but for HVAC equipment in particular, when they ship it out to you, they want to start their warranty. A lot of projects, that'll be 6 months, 8 months before the end of the project, right? So in this case, you know, we will have to put in some provisions for them to include the extended warranty.
That's very important because, you know, like, again, referring back to, you know, the stuff that worked in the town I was in, the warranty actually ran out almost the time it was installed, and we had
No,
all
you're
kinds of
absolutely right.
issues
That's
with the
because-
boiler,
right.
and they were saying, oh, it's out of warranty, and then the town was stuck with.
Schools are considered
repairing it.
commercial applications, and they usually only come with a 1-year warranty.
Yeah, and it usually runs
No
out
take-
before you
But
can
some of
get-
these,
right.
like the boilers will probably, I don't remember exactly, it's probably 5 years on the boilers, I would think. We can go through some of those, but some of the big equipment's gonna be more than 1 year.
Yeah, so that's important. I
Yeah,
think.
no, it is.
Yeah.
We
Now's
actually,
time.
we actually in good shape for this because, you know, we're gonna be getting equipment installed next summer that's gonna be activated and on warranty, starting the actual warranty by the end of the summer, right? So as soon as you start to use a rooftop unit for your own occupancy and use, it's now.
It's in
So
service.
there's not these huge things where it's a 20-month project and we get things 12 months before the end of the project and if you only had a year warranty, you'd be in that situation. There's only gonna be a couple months between when we get them and we hand those areas over to you, so.
Be rolling substantial completions.
But we will fill that gap as well with the extended warranty, we'll make sure we do that.
Now, are these all of the RTUs, there's no other HVAC units that are going up on the roof?
Those are all the rooftop
And makeup here.
in the makeup air unit. There may be
Okay.
some other smaller equipment
There's
like
probably some
exhaust
other small
fans and things like
fans.
that, but those are shorter
Now, I
lead time.
noticed in the working group notes that under the building HVAC, the equipment in the BMS, and I don't know what BMS is, but,
Building management
Building
systems.
okay. My moniker was a lot worse. Was anyway owned by the contractors.
What, one more time?
I'm not sure what meeting minute you're referring to. Yes, we own all the equipment. It's under our contract, but when you say it's owned by the contractors,
Well, that's what it said in the minutes.
as opposed to the early package, you mean?
As opposed to being owned by the school.
Yeah, so
You know,
the control system for the HVAC
So,
equipment.
but I mean, so you turn the total equipment and everything over to us at the end or whatever?
It's an
I was just
intermediate.
wondering, you know,
Yeah.
as far as maintenance and things like that, you know, it just didn't make sense that the contractor would own the equipment.
No, it means
Yeah.
own as in responsible for providing. There's a
Okay.
kind of a construction
Right.
term when you
All
own
right.
something, it's your contractual responsibility to
own the
provide.
project type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
a
we
thing.
own the boilers, meaning we're responsible for providing the
Okay.
boilers.
And so I
Not
think-
we get to take them away when we feel like it.
And so I think part of that discussion
Yeah.
probably
I
was.
think my BMS still applies to.
We're just buying the units right now, and so there's gonna be, so that, we're getting those because of the lead time associated with them.
Right.
And then we're gonna take those, and then we're gonna furnish those, right, to the subcontractor, and then they're gonna do the install, and there's gonna be other pieces and parts that are gonna be integrated with that. And I think the controls piece of that is part of that discussion probably, was that the controls are owned by the subcontractor. So that portion of that's gonna be going with that scope. These guys are only buying the RTUs as part of, you know, this early release package.
Okay.
I have one concern that I just signed off on the electrical generator purchase for approximately $20,000. And I was speaking with an electrical engineer, and he felt that unit wasn't sufficient.
Wasn't sufficient.
I don't know why, but we're happy to talk to them.
Okay,
This is the transformer?
This is,
The
yes.
Yeah.
This is the one that's actually specified by Raleigh.
Raleigh Electric.
yeah, Raleigh Electric, yeah.
And which electrical engineer that works for these guys or your own town
My own.
engineer?
A person I know.
Okay.
So actually, I think probably, you know, if you want to pursue it any any further is really just to go and have the discussion with, Raleigh Municipal Light, and, we're happy to participate in that.
Because the consulting engineer had reviewed the quotation and the specifications.
So you kinda got two sets of engineers, but, engineers can agree to disagree sometimes.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so, based on what Mr. Rich said, the selectmen are gonna be voting on this on Monday night, and will we be getting something in writing from either the OPM or?
Well, we have a request, so we were
Okay.
looking for approval at this level, so it could go to the
Yeah,
selectmen.
in anticipation
Yep.
of an affirmative vote this evening, I just wanna make sure
Yep.
that I get some communication,
Mhm.
requesting the selectmen to approve
Yep.
the items and, outlined in something, okay.
Yep.
But what's that, RTA number 1?
This is,
Request for
request for
award
award.
number
Okay, so you could, if you were gonna do a vote on this, you could recommend approval of request for award number 1, and that would encapsulate everything, right?
Correct.
I'll make a motion that this committee recommend to the Board of Selectmen for the early procurement authorization of rooftop units, boilers, and electrical switchgear not to exceed $862,000.
Can I have an additional $532.80? Because that's the full number.
Oh.
I might,
862.
Yeah.
862, 530.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
532.80, sorry.
I'm gonna give Harvey a hard time for
532.
not rounding that to the nearest dollar. Please. Never mind the nearest hundred.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the early procurement authorization recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for $862,532.80.
80 cents?
Any questions?
I have
All
a
those of-
question.
Yes,
finish
go
this.
right
This
ahead.
is not, go ahead, do this one first. It's an add-on, doesn't require.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
So when the things are delivered, thinking about how big, you're saying these big things, where are they usually stored when they're delivered?
Good question. There's a lot of
Middle of your
logistical
classroom.
things.
You're
They'll
right.
need a
That'll
crane
kill
to
you.
get them. They're big. They'll need a crane to get them up on the roof.
Okay.
So, we'll be set up in our, staging area over here.
Okay.
So they'll come in, and the crane will be in there, and we'll load them onto the roof. We're trying to get the north wing and potentially definitely the north wing, the kitchen, the all-purpose room, and potentially the south wing, we're trying to get loaded up in the summer. We might not get the south wing loaded up.
Okay.
We'll definitely get the north wing loaded and onto the roofs. These roof curbs, and there's some concrete slabs that have to be poured on the roof. So that'll be, the intent is to bring those up in the summer. But if we had to come up here, during the school year, we would make provisions, and we either make sure it's a very safe operation, and we know where everything is, if it's during the school day, or if there was concerns about that, we could try to do a Saturday or something like that, but.
So the boilers, when they're delivered.
The boilers are
Boilers
gonna
will
come
be
in
set
the
over summer.
summer.
Oh,
The boilers are
good.
gonna come in the
Okay.
summer, that's one of the and the switchgear. And, that's one of the important reasons for us
Yeah.
starting a little earlier, and that's a very intensive work scope. And, the idea is the first phases we turn over are running on the new boilers, next fall.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to number 7, public community meeting on November 16. Emphasis on the 16. And that time is
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
In the AP room, the PTA presidents emailed me this morning, and they're working on a flyer since they're hosting it. That'll be out shortly.
Any other
And as soon as
comments
that's done,
about?
we'll get copies, we'll get an electronic copy to you first.
And then I'll take the addresses and get those done.
Okay, next item. Execute MSBA paperwork, my favorite topic.
I don't think we
I
have
don't
any
think we
for
have
tonight.
any, we're just gonna
tonight.
sign
Whoa.
Early bid package, Pat, definitely.
I had 12 copies of
We can do invoices.
MSBA paperwork.
Then
Confirm and
resubmit
set
those.
future meeting dates. Another one.
We give those to Karen, then Karen gives us the propay paperwork, and then we sign
And I
it.
have the MSBA, I just haven't had any other invoices. that we need to approve. That's ours.
No,
No, that's the MS, yours goes to,
we do it
to
on
the
a
town.
monthly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, beginning of the month.
Right.
We do an invoice to the town, and then Karen does the propay, and that's what gets approved and signed.
They're not approved here.
Not approved, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It just get,
Okay, the next date for the building committee as a whole is,
Next date.
December 14th,
14th.
6:30.
This committee,
no, November 16th.
Oh, at 5, right.
5:30,
So
because,
that's, that's right, so that's my question, where is that 5 o'clock meeting going to be? In the all-purpose room? Because I'm assuming,
The play practice is in there from 5 to 6:30.
well,
The all-purpose room will be on the stage.
correct. However, it may not, you may have to be relocated to the gym.
Okay.
I'm trying to find out from this group,
We might be better off in the gym,
because
actually.
the people who video this meeting are not gonna wanna move back into, I'm assuming the community parent forum is going to be videotaped.
right,
Yep.
So my recommendation is we have the meeting in the AP room so the camera guy doesn't have to keep moving.
Yeah, we did that
So-
before.
We do that, yeah.
That
So
was
that
at-
means you can be in the gym and I'll talk to
set
Karen.
for
Yeah,
5:30?
Okay.
The SBC
It's even
meeting,
better,
yeah.
because then we don't have to move the chairs
Right.
back.
5:30?
5 o'clock, I
5 o'clock?
believe it's 5, yeah. 5.
So we're meeting at 5 or we're meeting at 5:30?
5 o'clock in the AP room.
Okay.
Okay, I will
Is
not
that-
be there.
Is that gonna go until 7?
I don't think so. I doubt it.
Bradford.
It's gonna be all set up with the chairs for the community and
Right, no,
everything.
I'm just trying to plan for, so, in between, so 5 to like.
I don't know what the agenda is going to be. I
Usually
think it's
make
gonna be
it
2 hours.
6, if there's not that much on the agenda.
Agenda's gonna be comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we make it,
Confirming the numbers.
can we make it for 6 if it's gonna be a short agenda?
So the PTA normally meets the second Tuesday of the month, which would have been the 14th.
Right.
But since they're hosting that meeting, they've moved their PTA meeting to 6:30 on the 16th here in the library, and I typically need to be at those meetings, so I can't be in 2 places at once.
So it stays at 5?
5:30, I mean, I can skip out of this meeting, but I do need to attend the PTA meeting.
Well, I already have 2 more meetings scheduled for that night.
Could we do 5:30 with that?
I don't care, it's up to the committee.
I don't know how long it's gonna take.
About the following week? Yeah, the 23rd is fine. I'm not doing anything.
23rd is Thanksgiving. I'll be eating turkey.
I'm not cooking.
I think the meeting agenda was very short, it was just to confirm the pricing that we ended up with on this early.
So why doesn't
release
the
pack.
committee meet at 6:45 if there's just a couple of things to take care of, and then the hearing starts at 7?
Why don't we meet immediately after the meeting? There's probably not gonna be more than,
I think it's hard,
Well, I think they
I'll
wanted the
take a time
pricing
runs
before we
out,
go into
yeah.
a public
oh,
meeting.
okay.
They wanted that.
the hearing
For the
starts at
committee.
7.
Maybe at 6:30.
Your meeting starts
Yeah.
at 6:30?
PTA meeting's at 6:30
If
that
we
evening.
did it at 6, and we'll probably be done in a half hour.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
6:30.
What?
Sounds good.
6.
6.
Building committee at 6.
Building
Does that
committee
help
at
you,
6.
Joe, or-
Yeah.
And then, so
That'll
you're
give us-
having 2 public meetings then, and you have to post another open meeting for 7?
We have, yeah, James, you hear that? We have to post the meeting twice,
So you-
one for the 6 and one for the 7.
Right, okay.
Already has my
Is the
pen.
7 o'clock meeting being called a hearing? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it's being
Just
called a community
community.
meeting.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's actually sponsored
Community
by the
information.
PTA.
It's sponsored by the PTA.
Yeah, it's a community information meeting, so it's
Right.
not a, does it have to be posted?
Yeah, we
It's a
posted it last
courtesy,
time.
but,
But the PTA didn't sponsor it the last time. Oh, this committee did,
yeah.
last November.
More posting, the better.
Doesn't hurt.
That's a Deb question, right?
Yeah,
Are
It's
we
still
having a meeting, or, I mean, if there's gonna be questions, it's gonna be for the building
Public,
committee, isn't it?
yeah.
Building
It's
committee's
not gonna be
meeting.
for the PTA.
yep, so we'll post it.
So 6 and 7 on the 16th. So the PTA, as I said earlier, they're working on a flyer. So since it's being hosted by the PTA, this group does not need to approve their flyer, correct? They can just send it out?
I've never heard of, like, for me, if it's a government meeting, then it should be sent out by the government. If it's the town, the selectmen, or Pine Grove School, that's how, when we have public hearing notices, there's notification by the municipality, not by a third party. So I'm not sure what the flyer is.
It's just,
I thought it was just supposed to be an you know,
Yeah,
it
it's
was
like
supposed to be an
information, right.
informational
Show
meetings,
pictures.
like.
We're showing pictures,
This
yeah.
this is where
Yeah,
the
it's not a
the
hearing,
process
it's a
is.
public.
It's-
PTA is hosting, we're there just to help and answer questions, right?
It's the
It-
PTA's
it's-
meeting.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
PTA's
Yeah.
meeting.
I honestly, if it's the PTA's meeting, I don't think you need to post it, I don't think you need to do anything, we're just helping them out, right?
Well,
Right.
at 7
Oh.
o'clock, if there's a quorum of this
Yeah,
committee
quorum
here, we're in
fair enough.
violation of the open meeting law.
That I can't
I will
speak
skip
to
that meeting.
You guys could get a couple out, and Joe, you don't even have to go to the meeting now, help yourself out.
Well, it doesn't hurt to post it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could post it.
But I don't think the flyer then, if
No.
we're posting, I don't
Then
think
we
there
don't
needs
have to
be
worry about the
formally
flyer
the
if they're,
flyer, 'cause
if
it's through
they're
PTA.
hosting,
Right.
we're just, posting it because we may have a quorum in attendance. It's gonna be a long day.
It's 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay, so we are meeting on the 16th. Do we have any other dates? for,
We talked about December 14th.
December,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a building committee meeting?
Yes.
What time was that?
6:30.
You can mention that, sorry.
Border security and,
Yeah.
and also talking about the egress.
We will, now that you mention it, so. So one other meeting, it's, the school has a standing monthly meeting with police and fire to go over security issues, and the topic for tomorrow, the November meeting, will be the construction project. So we're gonna just recap some of the security and design decisions that we've already made in conjunction with police and fire, and then we'll specifically go over the phasing of the site to follow up. We've already showed that to.
Correct, but the
someone.
normal people on the building safety committee, which includes nurse, guidance counselor, evaluation team chairperson, they will not be at that meeting tomorrow. It's Chris Walsh will be there, and us folks, and
Okay.
fire and police, and potentially we might bring Frank into the meeting, Chris.
Yes.
Okay. Just so everyone knows who's at the meeting.
On the 14th, what is the time?
6:30.
6:30.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We do have two items. We need to vote to approve the early start of construction, and we need to go over the electronic hosting bids.
Early start to construction and what else?
Last time we had touched on selecting an electronic hosting company,
Okay.
so we just need to go over that real quick and select.
It's on the back part of this.
Yeah, it's on the back part of the package.
And the reason that we didn't approve the early start last time was we had to make sure that we could host the town meeting in the gym. Was that the whole, and did we find out what happened there?
Yeah, we voted at the Board of Selectmen's meeting to hold the town meeting on April 30th as planned, and we will go for and we'll hold the meeting in the gym.
Okay.
So we'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make the
the early start.
Yeah, second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the early start of April 16th, which is Patriots' Day. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And what's the second part again? James?
You want me to go over
Yeah,
this, or?
yeah, absolutely. You put it together, you can go over it.
All right, so when we left this last, Debbie, I believe you wanted us to contact Andrew T. Johnson, the company who's doing a plan holding for the fire station and police station.
Well, I wanted to look at some competitive pricing, and that was
Right.
just a suggestion.
They were one of the original three that we reached out to. We
Okay.
reached out to Project Dog, Bid Docs Online, and then Andrew T. Johnson. And if you look at the sheet on the back, this is separated in two separate costs, really. It's the cost for the electronic hosting and the electronic bidding, and then also the cost for reproductions, the printing of anyone who requests the paper bids, we have to provide that. And typically what we see with the projects is we have about 85 to 100 bidders, and less than half of those will request paper bids. Most of those will use the electronic papers, the electronic documents. So we're looking at, I guess, an upset limit of about $15,000. And our recommendation from Pink is, when you look at the electronic hosting, Andrew T. Johnson is the cheapest to host, but we recommend Project Dog just because of the services they offer. We've used Andrew T. Johnson in the past. When they're electronic bidding, they're e-hosting, they go through a third-party service called Express Bid, and we've just had some issues with sorting through a lot of the information they provide and just usability by the bidders, the subcontractors, and us. So we found it's a little bit more service provided through Bid Docs Online, which is the most expensive. And Project Dog, when you look at the printing and the electronic hosting, they end up being probably one of the lower bidders, depending on how much paper is requested.
What's your experience with Project Dog?
We've had a lot of, couple good projects bid with them.
We're good.
Yeah.
We've had good experience with them, and they're right up the street.
Yeah, they're local.
Across the street for us.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not literally.
Well,
I didn't know they were looking.
Good report.
Yeah, we use, Project Dog and Bid Docs are both very reliable.
I think
Energy
Bid Doc-
Johnson's fine too for,
Yeah.
we've used them more for print, we've never used them electronically for energy.
And Project Dog
Yeah.
does have a lower paper production of paper documents than the other two. And that's really the unknown, is, you know, who's gonna request the paper set.
So James, you had calculated two ratios here, right?
Yes,
That's
so-
what, how I should, it's not, you shouldn't add both the 50% and the 19%? That's
No.
just estimating.
Correct.
So,
And
is it anybody over, if it goes over 19%, Project Dog wins, right?
Correct.
That's the message here.
Yes.
Yeah.
19% is what percentage of
Hard copies.
requests?
Mm.
Nine-
Correct.
Hmm?
So that 19% is about 90 bidders, so 90
90 out of,
requests.
what, 105 that you have now, or what?
So
Or-
we have 105 trade packages. We have 95 bidding companies that have expressed interest.
Some bid more than one package.
Yes.
Yeah, so if they get, they'll only request one hard copy set. Even if they're bidding windows and ceiling tile, they only request one
So
set.
basically, if everyone requests documents, then Project Dog wins, or is the least expensive if
Even at
20 or 30
19%,
people-
so it's only 20 bidders, I guess. If
Right.
20 bidders requested, then you'd have still Project Dog. that what, is that what it says?
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not the 90, it's if 20 or more bidders.
Right.
Okay.
And also, you said those bidders could bid on other parts of it too, so it's, even though it's one bidder, they could have 4 things, right?
Right, but they only get one
One
package, they
package.
don't get more
Okay.
than one.
We don't charge them for the plans and then return the money when they return, if they return the documents usually.
That was traditional. It-
That's, I mean, that's the
The
way I
the
remember it.
deposit is not worth the effort.
Yeah, exactly, it's, you know, short of the dog eating the entire package, they would get their deposit back, so. It's
You spend more
chasing it.
effort and labor.
Plus, we do all now, because there's addenda, so when you get the drawings back, the theory was you could give them out to the contractors that want, you
Yeah,
could give them a couple
or-
copies,
yeah.
but there's a conformed set, they're gonna, based on the addenda, during renewal, incorporate, and then we'll want everyone to have their printed set be the conformed set, including the incorporated addendum. We won't want those bid sets without the addendum floating around the job site, so we don't really want them to return them, give them to us, and so they just
Throw them away.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think what this is telling you, if you ask me, what it says is you should go with Project Dog, because, right, anything after 20% of the bidders, you're gonna be paying a higher price, and the service pretty much between the 3 is equal. So, you know, you're rolling the dice, normally, you're probably gonna do that, and it's not just those contractors, there may be some other subcontractors, some other people, right, that will be wanting the set, so you're not just rolling on 100, there could be, you know, substantially more than that, it's not just those trades. So, to me, I would say Project Dog is the better horse out of
I mean,
all
our,
these.
our bidders, outside the trade bidders, sometimes request,
Yeah.
a lot of our bidders use electronic, but some of them might say, I want a hard copy set, we'll say, oh, call Project Dog.
I'll make a motion to have Project Dog as the electronic heating, hosting company.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Anything else? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.